This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
And welcome to the Steve Gruber Show. It is a Thursday and a special edition of the program today, coming to you live from the Lansing Center in downtown Lansing. Steve Gruber with you. We're down here at the Brain Injury Association of Michigan get-together, and we'll be talking a lot about no-fault insurance, rehabilitation, brain injuries, that sort of thing will be coming up here, and we'll talk about that. Brought to you in part today by Health Partners of Michigan and the Eisenhower Center, advocates for preserving auto no-fault here in the state. And we'll have our first guest on that in just a few minutes. First, of course, the debate last night turned into a bit of a food fight, maybe. I found it very entertaining. I watched it for, an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. I got all the highlights. And I'm going to tell you, from what I saw, Carly Fiorina had a good night, and Marco Rubio had a good night. Donald Trump, well, a little sophomoric, maybe. And I don't disagree with what he says about immigration. I don't disagree with what he says about the Chinese and others giving us the short end of the stick on deals time and again. But when he got into petty politics right from the start, saying that Rand Paul should not even be on the stage, and that, you know, if it got to talking about looks, there's plenty of material to talk about if he's going to talk about Rand Paul. It just seems silly. John Kasich pointed that out, the governor of Ohio, saying, listen, what are we doing here? You know, if anybody turned this on, they just turn it right back off. They see a food fight, basically. And we've got serious. I mean, might have the most complex security situation in the world today as ever in my lifetime, with lone wolf attacks and Iran and North Korea and Syria and everything else that's going on. The Russians now have an armed battalion set up in Syria, and we're going to sit here and talk about who's got the nicest hair. Come on. It's time for an adult conversation, I believe. But if you watched the get-together last night, which millions did, by the way, if nothing else, Donald Trump is great for ratings. The hotline number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Dial it up. Tell me who you thought did well and why. But for me, Carly Fiorina, I'm telling you, she was direct. She was on point, whether it was talking about the comments made by Donald Trump about her, about national security, about the military, about border security. She seemed to be pretty solid. The other frontrunner, Ben Carson, who hails from Detroit, obviously, I guess he's making a bit of a local hero here in Michigan, and he's a hero to me no matter what happens. I mean, here's a guy who was born into poverty, born into the welfare system, and rose to become the premier pediatric surgeon in the world. I mean, this guy separated conjoined twins that were conjoined at the head. Talk about skill level. Ben Carson breathes rarefied air. But again, he's quiet. He's very soft-spoken. He's brilliant. But you need a little bit of flash, I think, to go ahead and secure this nomination. You need some flash. You need some, frankly, some pizzazz, for lack of a more scientific term. I mean, if you could take the pizzazz of Trump and bring it back a couple of notches and give it to Carson, you'd really have something, I think. And I think, obviously, the move towards outsiders. But here's what I'm going to say. I think moving forward, watch Carly's poll numbers. Carly Fiorina, when it came to talking, she had the moment of the night, discussing Planned Parenthood and funding or defunding thereof. And Chris Christie had mentioned that he had vetoed supporting Planned Parenthood in New Jersey 8 consecutive times. And it's true. We checked. But Carly Fiorina talking about the latest video where a fetus is on the table squirming, kicking. And if a fetus is on the table, we call that a baby where I come from. At any rate, talking about that and talking about the people in the room discussing how to, appropriately harvest the brain from a living human being. And Carly was on it. One of our listeners says, pizzazz is Trump making fun of hair. How about Ben Carson needs a little more horsepower, needs a little more, I don't know. Well, what is it? If it's not pizzazz, I'll let you guys decide. 888-900-9966. We'll be taking your calls all day. And you tell me. But clearly Trump was the guy getting punished from all sides, from Rand Paul, Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina. They were all taking their shots. Basically the lightning rod of the Republican presidential race. Luckily this one did go into some serious policy territory, covering everything from Iran to Russia to Planned Parenthood to immigration, but at times to the visible frustration of candidates trying to stick to those issues. Few segments passed without a sparring session between Trump and somebody. Almost every time Trump hit back, and it was unclear whether any candidate would be able to dent his front-runner status, but I wonder... well, there was an exchange, 20, 30 minutes in, where Carly Fiorina was asked about the comments that were published in Rolling Stone magazine about Trump, saying, look at that face, who could vote for that face? And Carly got up and they had a back and forth, and Carly said, well, I'm pretty sure the American women heard exactly what Donald Trump was saying. And he's high energy, but I just wonder if he's just a little too reckless at this point. Yeah. Trump also blamed George W. Bush for President Obama's election. It was such a disaster those last few months that Abraham Lincoln couldn't have been elected, said Trump. It's a fair point. We're in front of a live studio audience today. Don't get that benefit very often, by the way. So we have some gadflies about, I guess. You guys are gadflies today. How do you like that?
Thanks. We like that. We love gadfly.
Yeah. So anyhow, here's the way I see it. I think that Carly Fiorina did well. I think that Marco Rubio did well. Jeb Bush probably did what he had to do, which was survive. The Republicans' $100 million man who has got, 6 points in the polls? And on life support. Scott Walker, though, the big loser of the night. I didn't get to that. I think Scott Walker was the big loser of the night. He's been hemorrhaging support for about 6 weeks now. He did nothing last night to step back. One of the things I kept seeing, the moderators kept stepping up and trying to stop the candidates. Everybody would plow through. Carly, Trump, Jeb, Kasich, they all plowed through the moderators. Every time they told Walker to stop, he just stopped. Way too timid to save a campaign. And not to mention that Donald Trump tore him apart, said what you're trying to tell people about Wisconsin simply isn't true. Wisconsin's $2.5 billion in debt and getting worse. Your economic miracle in Wisconsin is false. It doesn't exist. So I think Scott Walker's days as a candidate could soon come to a close. And remember, he was number one 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, he was number one. He might be number two on the way out the door. It is 14 after the hour on a special Thursday at the Brain Injury Association of Michigan get-together at the Lansing Center, brought to you by Health Partners of Michigan and the Eisenhower Center, advocates for preserving auto no fault in Michigan. We'll talk about that straight ahead.
The Steve Gruber Show, American values with Midwestern common sense.
All right, welcome back to it, 18 after the hour on a special edition of the Steve Gruber Show, coming to you live from the Lansing Center, right in the shadow of the state capitol building, right downtown, where all the action happens, politically speaking. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, from one of our listeners, Will, posts up this morning, I think I may have become a Marco Rubio fan last night. What does he look like without a shirt on? Clearly a reference to Vladimir Putin. And Will, I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to know, and you need to get some sleep. All right. There you have it. What do you look like without a... I will check. Let's see here. Okay, shifting gears. The Brain Injury Association of Michigan is holding its It's an annual get-together here, right, in the Lansing Center in downtown Lansing. And one of the things we want to talk about is a big debate in Michigan. It continues to go on. We've had this conversation before, and that's about where are we going in this state when it comes to auto no-fault. Now, some big news coming up because, am I talking out of class if I say that the people up high are going to take a look at this come up in a few weeks?
Not at all.
Yeah. So I'm just checking off mic here, but the Supreme Court is going to take a look at this catastrophic fund and some different things because apparently Freedom of Information Act laws matter, apparently. Anyhow, our next guest, John Kornack, the president of the Eisenhower Center. And the Eisenhower Center is one of the premier facilities, not only in Michigan, but around the country, located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But it's a premier facility to take care of people that have catastrophic head injuries, brain
That's
injuries, correct?
Thank you. It's not sexy, but it's what we do.
Yeah, lean right into that microphone, by the way.
Sure.
So tell me about the Eisenhower Center. How long has it been there, and what kind of things do you see? I mean tell me what, if you walk into a typical day at your facility, give me a couple of anecdotal of things that you might find as a normal patient, a normal day, the staff, what goes on, every day there?
Well, the normal day is we get to take care of folks who are critically injured in a car accident or from a professional football player or a veteran who's been blown up over in Afghanistan, and we take care of them. What a typical day is, they come in, they're confused. We try to help them organize their life, organize their future, and give them a pathway to recovery. So every day we're behavioral, so
Sure.
Eisenhower Center is kind of a difficult place to be. But every day we take that as a challenge, and we try to help folks move forward. A typical day for me is coming in and cutting vegetables with some of the more difficult clients. I set their life straight by, making great carrots.
Really? All right.
Every morning I come in, and then I feed them breakfast, and I say, let's get started with life because today's a new day, and let's make it right.
And I don't know if this is the right comparison to make, but in a way you make me think of the movie 50 First Dates. We basically start over new every day. You start over new.
There's a lot of that. There is a lot of that. And to be honest with you, every day it just makes it a challenge. We get to start the day and say, how do we make it one step closer to a quality life?
But you also have those small victories along the way.
Oh yeah, we got major victories happening along the way, and a lot of that is that we get to help the veterans. And as far as the VA system, everyone goes, "Oh, this is a crazy world." And I said, "Well, the veteran, the fighters that are coming back now need help beyond some of the things that the VA can do. So we're proud to be able to help them out as well. So
it's an important undertaking every day.
Yeah.
From your staff, and I'm sure they become very emotionally vested in these people that they see every day, and they're not patients anymore. They become projects and friends and all of this, and their family members as well. Now, what is your interest here? The big conversation in Michigan, obviously, is no-fault insurance. The insurance industry would like to change the way some of that is approached. You guys are staunchly opposed to that. Tell me why you believe what you believe.
Well, just like the candidates having their food fight, as you spoke of, they're taking their shots, and the insurance industry, since the inception of No Fault, have been taking their shots as well. So it's just another day in paradise with the insurance industry. They're making huge profits. They're spending billions of dollars on advertisement, so people kind of believe Flo and some of the other folks out there. But the reality is Michigan's the only state that gets to take care of folks that are catastrophically injured in an auto accident. Many of the times we're talking to
and just so we're clear about this, because there's a big discussion here, but I, as a driver in Michigan, have paid a little bit extra for years and years for every car that I drive to contribute to this fund. So in the unfortunate event that myself or some member of my family has a catastrophic injury, as you described, and we have exhausted our other resources to get the medical treatment we need and desire, Michigan is the only place where that's going to be taken care of, and you're not going to bankrupt the entire family and have to sell the farm.
Yeah, it is amazing. You're exactly right. And that's called the MCCA, the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. And they have $18 billion there just for those folks. And
are you sure?
Well, it's a little more than that.
19?
Yeah, it's a little more than
20?
that. We try to keep it at a lower figure so they don't feel bad about how much money they have. And that's part of our FOIA lawsuit. We want, hey, you're making astronomical amounts of money, and it's here to help the critically injured. You keep telling us there's not enough in there, and we'd like to take a look. So that's what the
if I'm not mistaken, though, they've taken a few withdrawals off that account.
Oh yeah, they anytime there's an adjustment, they get to take $1 billion off the top, and they get to give it back to the members. And the members are not the drivers in Michigan. The members are their insurance companies.
Right. So people all over the country benefit from this. So how critical would you say? There's John Cornack on the show here with us from the Eisenhower Center, the president there. Only about 30 seconds left here, John. But how critical is this debate, this argument, this battle, if you will, in your mind, to preserve no-fault insurance here?
It's, the problem is they keep us right on the edge. So it's critical every year. Every year they come out with something new. This year it's Senate Bill 248 and 288 called D insurance. That's where they're taking our credit scores and our zip codes, and they're deciding that they can really elevate the cost or the averages. So the reason it's difficult now is because they're using their agents, and so the average cost it looks really high, but that's because they price it really high and then make us all kind of freak out.
And I don't think they should be using credit scores. I've said that from day one. Just because I forget to mail in my payment doesn't mean I'm going to go out in a car wreck. Anyhow, John, a pleasure. We'll be talking a lot more about it here for the rest of the morning. Coming up, we're going to talk about that Supreme Court decision to hear this case, which could be pivotal and important to you as a resident and a driver here in Michigan. It's Thursday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I...
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Thursday, post-debate number 2. And, I thought it was a pretty decent debate overall. After you got past the childish behavior, and there was a fair amount of that, I thought Donald Trump wasted a fair amount of time, taking on Rand Paul. What's the point? He shouldn't even be up here. He's only at 1% of the vote. Well, if he's at 1% of the vote, then what do you care? Ignore him and talk about something substantive would have been my recommendation. I thought Carly Fiorina, when given the opportunity, was good on the facts, the command of the information on foreign policy, on domestic policy. I thought Marco Rubio was very good in telling the anecdotal stories about his grandfather and his parents coming here from Cuba. I thought John Kasich was right in pointing out, hey, guys, let's talk about something that matters. This back and forth, nobody cares. I thought Chris Christie was good on Planned Parenthood. I don't think that Scott Walker did what he needed to do, and I'm not sure Jeb Bush did anything near what he needed to do, although he was right, apparently, about casino gambling in Florida. Trump didn't, and Trump, was telling the truth insofar he never directly tried to get casino gambling, but he had lobbyists do the same. Anyhow, let's go to our next guest here, Aaron Kall, to sort out how this debate really went. Aaron Kall is the director of the University of Michigan Debate Program and Debate Institute. Aaron, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you had a chance to watch this part food fight, part debate, right?
I did.
Yeah. So what do you make of it? I mean, let's break it down. Let's just your overall view of the event altogether.
As you mentioned, I think that Carly Fiorina had the best night. It was her first time on the main stage, and I think she started herself very well, and wouldn't be surprised to see her have a boost in her poll numbers and possibly get up to second place. But I don't think really there was anything to change the overall trajectory of the race, and I expect Donald Trump to remain the front runner, and we have another about 6 weeks until we do it all again at the next debate in October.
You say that, but I wonder about the Donald Trump thing, because I thought there were a couple of moments when he was talking about Rand Paul and there being plenty of opportunities for commentary on his looks or whatever, lots of material there, however he put it. And then what came across to me as a completely disingenuous compliment to Carly Fiorina, disingenuous altogether. I don't think that Donald Trump did himself any favors. He may remain flat, but I don't think his numbers are going to uptick. Of course, I've thought that a couple of other times. Your take?
I agree that he didn't improve his standing, but because the gap was so large coming into the debate, I don't know that if anything last night will fundamentally alter that. Dr. Ben Carson was right on Mr. Trump's heels heading into this debate, and I thought he had one of the weaker performances. He seemed very nervous, a little bit too scripted, and didn't get kind of the time to distinguish himself on the issue of foreign policy, which he had hoped. So because the second place participant coming into the debate didn't have a strong performance, because Trump had such a commanding lead, there was no major gap that really hurt himself. So I think he'll still be okay after this debate, but certainly with debates going forward, he needs to increase the quality of his performance if he wants to eventually be the Republican nominee.
And I agree strongly with you there, because I think Dr. Ben Carson timid was the word that came to mind for me, so right along the same thing that you saw. And he really has to, and I talked about this just a few minutes ago, he has to step up the energy, the pizzazz, as I put it. He has to get he needs some fire in his belly, and I know he has it, but he has to project that if he intends to stay in this race. For Jeb Bush, I don't think Jeb Bush did himself any favors. I mean, it was a couple of decent exchanges between Donald Trump, and he stopped Donald Trump from talking over him a couple of times. But overall, Jeb Bush's numbers, they won't change, I don't believe.
I think Jeb Bush's performance was a little bit better than the first one. That was very uneven, and he finished very weakly in the first debate. But he did one positive thing in that being a low-energy candidate was something that it kind of plagued him coming into the debate, and was an effective narrative that was developing. And I do think that he definitely took the energy up another level, and so getting rid of that characterization, I think, is very helpful. And I also thought he had a good exchange with Trump over the issue of his brother and defending his brother record and keeping the United States safe after the 9/11 attack. So he had a few good moments, but he's in it for the long run because of his funding, and so he'll certainly get some more opportunities to try to improve his standing going forward.
Okay, so here are the candidates. I think Trump had a flat night. Fiorina was definitely up. I thought Marco Rubio's performance was solid. I thought Ben Carson was down. I thought Jeb Bush maybe up a little. I thought John Kasich stepped in at a couple of key times and helped himself, because I think John Kasich will continue to hang around, because he might be the Jeb Bush alternative. He might be the alternative for a center-right, more moderate Republican candidate, and of course he's the governor of Ohio, which is critically important. But I thought the guy that really maybe have hurt his chances to ever get back in this thing, Scott Walker. I just didn't see much of a performance from Governor Walker last night. He seemed too timid. Every one of the other candidates would talk over the moderators or talk through to explain their point of view and say, hold on. Every time Scott Walker got cut off, he just seemed to quit. And he seemed out of sorts to a point, and he didn't seem comfortable. And at one point, I noticed he had a lot of sweat on his lip, and maybe that's superficial. But sweating a lot and not giving great answers and being timid is not a way to get into the White House. Just not.
No, certainly not when you compare yourself to Ronald Reagan and his great communication style. Those are certainly tough latitudes to live up to. But no, Walker's campaign was in a free fall coming into the debate. He was down to just a few percentage points after he was doing so well earlier, and especially in the state of Iowa. So his campaign is clearly flatlining, and he didn't have the kind of performance that he was expecting in order to get back in the race. I'd like to echo your thoughts on Marco Rubio. He was very strong, especially on issues of foreign policy. While many of the outsiders have been very successful to date, he used his experience as a senator, as part of the Foreign Relations Committee and the Intelligence Committee over the issues of Iran, and so a pretty meaty foreign policy debate. So I definitely think that he helped himself. Finally, on Governor Kasich, I thought he had an excellent first performance because of low expectations, and primarily because it was in the state of Ohio. But I think he suffered going to Los Angeles, not having such a crowd advantage, and didn't really feed off the energy like he did in the first debate, although he did make a few key points throughout the debate.
Well, he didn't do anything to hurt himself, and again, I think that he is the one guy that can benefit from, if Scott Walker exits the races, for example, or Jeb Bush continues to struggle, I think John Kasich is the one that's most likely to benefit from those changes in the dynamic of the race, because he is very well funded. He is still in the top one or two in the state of New Hampshire, which is key, which will keep his candidacy alive. As for some of the others, the one name we haven't even mentioned here, a couple of them, and we've only got like 10 seconds here, but Ted Cruz, Chris Christie. I actually thought Chris Christie had some good points, but Ted Cruz, nothing to remember.
Now, it comes off as a little bit arrogant, although...
a little bit.
a little bit, but
yeah.
He does certainly have a strong conservative base. But I do agree Chris Christie was very strong issues of Planned Parenthood and using his experience as a prosecutor. And so he did have a good night.
Aaron Kall. Thank you very much. Aaron Kall, director of the University of Michigan Debate Program. Thanks for the breakdown. It's Thursday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Oh, we're gonna rock down to Electric.
All righty, it's 45 after the hour. 9 coal-fired power plants coming offline in April of 2016, creating a shortfall of about 1.5 gigawatts of electricity. The experts at Consumers Energy, and by the way, I'm live at the Lansing Center in Lansing, Michigan, where they're putting on the big trade show here. And so if you hear some noise in the background, so it is. It's part of the Brain Injury Association of Michigan annual get-together. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But if you hear some ambient noise in the background, that would be why. One electric industry expert says electric deregulation unfairly burdens regulated Michigan customers with $300 million in an annual cost shift. Larry Makovich, Ph.D., Vice President and Senior Power Advisor at IHS Cambridge Energy Research Associates. Larry, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks. Great to be here.
All right, so tell me why deregulation is because I'm going to guess I don't agree with you here, but I'm going to let you lay out your position and tell me why a monopoly is a good idea.
Well, the problem is that where we are right now in Michigan, with about 10% of electric consumption, with the ability to shop around and choose power suppliers, and the remaining 90% not being able to do that, this mix was never the intended end state of the deregulation process. And the reason we have this odd mix where some people can choose and some people can't is because deregulation never played out the way people expected. And the problems that cropped up, that were most noticeable first in California, was that when you set up an electricity market and supply and demand were in balance, the price was too low to provide the incentive for additional power supply. And that's why California ended up with a shortage. So there was a inherent flaw in the power market that caused this result. Now, it triggered a number of interventions, including here in the Midwest, so that the big regional power market here that Michigan is a part of, MISO, intervened, did a couple of different things, but tried to address this problem by also setting up rules that would create a capacity market. So besides just the energy market where you're settling a price for kilowatt hours, there's also a market that now sets a price for kilowatts. Now that addressed some, but not all, of this problem that the market prices were too low. Now, in addition, there's been some other interventions, most notably that concern over climate change has created mandates for renewable power, wind and solar, which also affect power prices and suppress them.
Well, of course they do, because windmills cost $5 million a piece. That's before you put them in the ground and stand them up. $5 million. And in Michigan, if you're lucky, you can power 380 homes per $5 million windmill that needs maintenance and update and needs to be installed and has irregular energy output. I mean, I don't know whose brainchild this was, but it doesn't seem to be working all that well here. Go on.
Well, yes. So wind is a good example. So when you build something like that and put it into a power marketplace, it's expensive to build it, but once it's built, when the wind is blowing, which is not all the time, the producer of electricity has a zero marginal cost to produce electricity. So when they bid into the marketplace and they compete with each other, actually when wind and generators compete with each other, they drive the price to zero in the wholesale power marketplace. And so that kind of price suppression is something that's also creating lower power prices in the marketplace. So what we've got is this situation.
So hold on right there. Hold on, Larry. We're on with Dr. Larry Makovich here, Vice President, Senior Power Advisor, IHS Cambridge Energy Research Associates. The problem there is, if they go to zero, which they often do, I couldn't tell you the number of times I've driven by these big windmill farms in Michigan, and they're not turning because there's not enough wind here. It's a terrible place to try to capture that much wind. Then you have to have backup electricity. You have to have backup power. You have to have a coal plant or a nuclear plant or a natural gas plant. Otherwise, we'll be sitting in the dark, which, by the way, is the prediction for 2016 from the higher-ups at Consumers Energy. We will have rolling blackouts in the state. Apparently, that's going to be the new normal. Go on.
Well, that's right. There's a shortage that looks to be looming in the next 2 to 3 years for Michigan that's pretty serious. And you're absolutely right. You've got a power system where regulated utility ratepayers are paying for this mix of baseload, cycling, and peaking power plants that are there to back up and fill in for the renewables. But to pay for that good mix of generating technologies with nice fuel diversity to protect customers from the ups and downs of fuel prices, those costs are not being fully covered from the marketplace. So we've got regulated customers that are paying for it. We've got these customers with choice that are being supplied by people sourcing from the market. So they're getting the benefits of this fuel diversity, technology diversity, and adequate supply. But because they're being supplied by alternative energy suppliers that are sourcing from a market that isn't covering full costs, we get this $300 million a year of benefits that these customers enjoy, but they don't have to pay for.
Yeah, well, we would have been better off as a state fighting back against the EPA and not shutting down 9 coal-fired power plants, because the last time I stepped outside in Michigan, I don't know where you live, Doctor, but here in Michigan, I have never worried about taking a breath. I have never worried about the air quality or the quality of what's going on here. I think we're pursuing nonsensical approaches to energy, but I love competition, but that'll be a conversation for another day, Doctor, and I greatly appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts, because there's a lot more to discuss here between now and April of 2016 when these big changes happen. So I'd like to have you back sometime soon to talk more about it. It's an important topic.
Great.
There you have it. Dr. Larry Makovich, Vice President, Senior Power Advisor at IHS Cambridge Energy Research Associates, bringing you all the news that matters to you in here in Michigan. I'm Steve Gruber.